Welcome to Spenelli Speaks. I'm Danny and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about what I read in January. So this is my January wrap up. But before I do that, I want to go ahead and make sure you all know what a boss I am today, because I am totally decked out in some Rugrats memorabilia. So this is a Christmas shirt. However, we have Tommy and Chucky hanging out over here. I've got some cool Reptar pants on, so I've got Reptar. And then I've got Chucky on my socks. Chucky's my favorite. I know that was kind of silly, but I just couldn't help myself. I was starting to put on clothes and I put on my Reptar pants, and then I was like, I'm gonna put on my Christmas shirt, and then I was like, oh yeah, I have those socks too. So I was really psyched about all of that, but 'tis neither here nor there. This is a good time to let y'all know you should subscribe to my channel. So go ahead and hit that subscription, as well as the notification bell, so that you see all of my videos come in when they are fresh and new, and you can be the first ones to check those out. So let's get right into it. I read and I listened to one audiobook, but I read 8 books this past month in January, and then listened to one on audiobook. I had 5 3-star ratings, 2 4-star ratings, and 2 5-star ratings, which is pretty rare for me. So I was surprised at the amount of 3 stars that I had this past month, but it happens. I was just pretty happy that there were no 2 or 1-star books, because that sometimes is pretty awful. So we're gonna get right on into it. So you have not yet seen all of my reorganization videos, but you're kind of getting a sneak peek here, because I've changed my room around quite a bit along with all of the books. So now I have a shelf here that will have all of the books that I have read or am reading for the month, and then starting a pile of books that I will be reading for the next month. So right now, because I'm transitioning from one month to the other, I have a full stack on both sides. So we are going to talk about all of the 3-star books first. And the first one I'm going to talk about is actually the book that my book club and I are talking about for the month of January. So we're actually having a book club discussion about that tomorrow night. So we will be hashing that out and seeing what everyone else thought, and kind of discussing the book as a whole. And that book was Beartown. So I'm just going to grab that here. So Beartown, which is a Frederik Backman book, I gave this 3 stars. The reason being is, for me, the story was just too realistic for me. It's something that would absolutely happen anywhere in the United States and elsewhere, depending on that particular area's small townish views of the world. So for me, books are really meant to be an escape for the small to triumph. And my friend Beth Ann always says this to me, I don't like unhappy endings. I like a happy ending. I like people to, if they've done wrong, I want them to be punished. And if they have had something wrong happen to them, I want them to, succeed. So this book is about a very small town, a hockey town, and it's very caught up in the fact that their juniors team, which is a team of teenagers, are going to bring them the rewards of bringing their town back to, life with a new hockey rink and new businesses and all of these things, and it all hinders on this one game getting them into the finals and basically bringing back all the, I guess, celebrity status that the town once had in its heyday. And something pretty significant happens, and I don't want to give anything away, and it's something that is horrific and should have been a punishable offense, and it goes unpunished. And to me, that is just ridiculous, but also is something that happens every day, and it's probably happening right now. So that really disturbed me, because I don't want to read about something that I know happens. I want, you know, the wrong to be punished and all that kind of thing. So what I would say is 5 stars in writing. I think the author, Frederik Backman, does an exceptional job of his writing style. At first, when I was reading this, I was having a hard time getting into it because he was introducing so many characters within the same chapter. So you would, instead of switching from character point of view between chapters, it was literally between paragraphs. So for me in the very beginning, I was very like, what is happening? I don't understand why he's jumping between all these different characters. But then when it really got into the meat of the story, I appreciated it because you were able to see the different perspectives and how they all intertwined, and it truthfully really helped me understand the full scope of the issue. Now, did I like it anymore having all those perspectives? No. But like I said, 5 stars in writing, 5 stars in character development, 5 stars in as a whole on that. I can't give it 5 stars myself because as a reader, I just really didn't enjoy reading it. So for me, I gave them 3 stars. But what I would say is if you are a reader who enjoys reading about controversial topics, enjoys reading something and really thinking about those topics, and you are a reader who doesn't mind if it's a happy, sad, or indifferent ending, then you would love this book. And that's all I say about that. So that's Beartown by Frederik Backman. Another 3 that I gave here, I read earlier in the month, and I may have talked about this a little bit. I think I attempted to do a reading vlog. Can't even name it right, but A Quiet Life in the Country by T.E. Kinsey. I really like this. I think overall there was a little bit of like lacklusterness to it, so that's why I gave it a 3. I think as I get farther into the series, because there are quite a few books that go along with this, I'll appreciate it more. What I truly loved about this were the main characters. So Lady Hardcastle and her lady's maid Flo are super funny. I think the development there is truly it kind of drives you to come closer to them, which even though I gave it a 3, I do want to read more of the books because I feel like their characters will develop much more in the books to come. So I'm kind of excited for that. But overall, the storyline was just like any other kind of cozy mystery. You knew that they were going to figure it out at some point. They were going to get themselves into trouble, but they were going to get out of it again. And so I think what really drove this was the characters themselves. So I gave that one a 3 as well. So that was A Quiet Life in the Country. The next 3 that I gave was to Origin by Dan Brown, and I was quite surprised myself on that. So Origin by Dan Brown. This is the latest in his series of the Robert Langdon character. So if you recall Robert Langdon from, you know, like the Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, Lost Symbol, Inferno. Same character gets himself into the same kind of crazy situations, always kind of revolve around some kind of religious, spiritual, something of that nature. So in reading this book, and it's a hefty one, I was kind of disappointed in the fact that it was not thrilling me the way that the other books have thrilled me. Whenever I read a Dan Brown book, you feel like you're on the edge of your seat constantly. I've read Digital Fortress, I've read Deception Point. You're always like gripping something, and then he changes the chapter to a different character and you're like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? I did not feel like that in this book. I really just felt like I was reading and reading and reading, and nothing was really happening, but at the same time happening. And I feel like I knew what was going to happen. I feel like I knew exactly who the culprit was. I knew exactly how he was doing it. And it was not a surprise to me at all when it was all kind of brought out to light. So for me, that was a total disappointment, because typically in these kind of books. I'm trying to figure it out, and then as soon as it's brought to light, I'm like, oh my gosh, I never would have thought that. It just didn't do that here for me. I think the concept was brilliant. However, not something that was something that I wouldn't have thought of. Of course, I'm not saying that, oh, I could have written this. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that as it was laid out, it was kind of a given that that's probably what it was. So I think the first 100 pages totally was super interested, and then it was a lot of just reading through the motions up until the last couple of chapters, which weren't all that thrilling. It more or less just gave you the information you needed to know to understand what was happening. So, I mean, I like Dan Brown's writing. I like, you know, the direction he is going, but I've never given Dan Brown a 3 before until Origin. So I recommend reading it just to have that piece of the story in there. But again, it's a chunker. So, I mean, find a dry month that you have nothing else to read, maybe? I don't know. I feel bad because it's like, I love Dan Brown, but I wasn't thrilled by this book at all. So that was a 3. And then I have another 3, which was The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. Going into this, I had no idea what this story was about up until I read the inside jacket when I was telling you all about it. But in reading this, I was really interested in the very beginning. When you start reading this book, you get right into the heat of the moment. There's a murder, multiple murders that happen, and then there's a small boy that is left behind. And so he grows up in this graveyard, and in my understanding of it, you're trying to figure out like what time era they're in, because is it like a long time ago? Is it modern? And as you're reading through, you're realizing it is in modern times. So a lot of having him grow up in this graveyard is really confusing, because like, how does a boy grow up in a graveyard? And there is some little explanations here and there, but I mean, I don't think realistically could a boy grow up in a graveyard for like, I think it's like 16 years. So that to me was a little unrealistic, and not that this is supposed to be a realistic. I mean, it talks about magic and ghosts, and I mean, ghosts raised him essentially. But what I was disappointed in, and why I gave it a 3, because the book was good. I mean, the story was impressive. I have never read anything like this before. However, the story didn't really dive into the areas of which you would want to have known about. For instance, it talks about this like secret society, which basically is the society who like commissioned these murders. But that's all. You just find out that it's a society that wants these people murdered because of some prophecy. But you don't really know anything about the society. Well, what does the society do? Why does this prophecy matter so much? Why do they care? What do they do that they wouldn't want this person to mess that up? Then there's another society that is like to protect him in a way and fights against this other society. But again, you don't learn anything about them either. So it's just like 2 random entities of crusaders fighting against one another for who knows? But it affects this boy who lives in a graveyard. Okay, that's it. That's what it's about. So I gave it a 3 because I did enjoy the idea. I just wish it would have been more explanatory in the areas that it was like, oh, wow. And then that's all. You got like a paragraph of nothingness. So to me, this story was really just about a boy. This story was a coming-of-age story within a really weird situation, but it was just about a boy growing up in a graveyard with ghosts and ghouls and a hellhound and a weird guy who I think never dies. So that I gave a 3. Then I did listen to an audiobook. I listened to Girl Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis, and that one was hard for me to listen to. Not so much because it was bad. I did give it a 3, and the reason I gave it a 3 is there are a lot of times where I rolled my eyes or really wanted to like pass parts of it because it was just so, it's hard to explain. So for me, when I'm reading a book that is meant to be like a self-help book, something that is supposed to motivate you and help you become a better person, I don't like to be referred to as a girl. And my fault, the title literally has the word girl in it. Girl, wash your face. But it was all this like girl this and girl that and y'all this and y'all that. And I think she used the word narrative like 7 million times. And to me, it was just hard to listen to because it was very conversational. And maybe because it was an audiobook, it felt that way, obviously, because she was speaking. But it just seemed very, this is going to sound so silly, but it just sounded really unprofessional. Like I didn't really feel like she was just talking to me like she was my friend. And that quite possibly could have been the entire point. You know, she talks a lot about her flock. You know, if you know anything of Rachel Hollis, she is I don't really know anything about Rachel Hollis other than what she told me in her book. So she basically is an author. She has a couple of books that she's written. She also has a blog and an internet website, something or other. She posts a lot of stuff on Instagram. She also was a planner of sorts, like an event planner. And you can comment below and tell me everything you know about her. It doesn't much matter after I'm done with this because I probably won't ever read anything from her again because I was not that interested. But made a good life. She's really come a long way since being, as she says, in God's country, somewhere in the middle of California. But and that too, she is a Christian, and she speaks a lot about that in her book and refers to it a lot within the book. So that for me was hard. Not that I'm not a Christian, but for me, when I'm reading self-help, I am looking for tangible advice. Whereas some other people who are more religious, more spiritual, they are looking for more spiritual advice. But if I'm about to better myself, I am not one that looks to the heavens to help me stop being such a bitch. I'm looking for more tangible, like, I have like a type A personality. I need to know, like, I need to do these things to do it. And in some of those areas, she did mention a few things that probably could help me. But overall, I felt like it just steered a little too far into the heavens for me as an overall idea. And I know that might rub people the wrong way, but for me, that's just my opinion. I think she did a nice job. I'm glad I didn't read it because I definitely wouldn't have finished it if I had to read that. But it was nice to listen to in the car. Except a few of those cringeworthy moments where I just wanted to get through it. But overall, it was a 3 to me. So, gonna get off that soapbox there. So, the next book that I have here is the Guinevere Deception. And this one I gave a 4, and I think I attempted a vlog on this. Did I? I think I did. I think I did a vlog. See, my mind is, I'm just losing it, but I did give this a 4. I liked this. It was a really interesting take on King Arthur and Queen Guinevere, as well as Lancelot. I am interested in seeing where they're going to take this because, like I said in my vlog, this story does not end with an ending. It ends with a beginning. So this book just completely sets you up for what is to come in this world. So Guinevere, the Guinevere in this story is not the actual Queen Guinevere. She is a person who is being sent by Merlin to help protect King Arthur, essentially. She has magic, and she is going to Camelot, where magic has been banished, in order to protect Arthur from what Merlin believes is a coming war from a queen that had been previously killed or banished or whatever. Really, whenever anything's magic, are they ever really dead? No. So it set it up for really, it was really interesting. There were twists and turns in here that I really didn't see coming, which I really appreciated, because I am really good at figuring things out, and I can't help but do it. So when I do have things that are like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming, I really like that. So this was really good. Again, I've said it time and time again, this was in the children's section of my library. I don't agree with that at all. I don't think this is a middle grade book. I definitely think this is a YA book because of some of the content that's in there. I might just be overprotective, but that's all I'm going to say on that, because I know I've said it a million times before. So I gave this one a 4. I really did like it. I am looking forward to more to come, and I will read those probably not like right when they come out. I'll probably just wait until I can get it from the library. So I'm not going to be one of those, you know, sit in a line at Walmart and get it at midnight releasings, but I definitely will look into reading the second one on that. So that was pretty good. That one I gave a 4. And then I have Cinder. So Cinder is a Marissa Meyer book, and this is the book that I just finished. Oh, there's a bookmark. So this is the book that I read last this month, and I never thought I would pick this book up. I had seen it a million times at the library, seen it over and over again on Goodreads, on Instagram, everywhere, and I'm just not a person to, you know, follow all of the hype. I don't like to do that. I like to find books because I gravitate towards them, and if those are classics to, you know, in the 2000s to written yesterday, then that I just base my decision on the fact that they look interesting. So I picked this book up because for the final time it was laughing me in the face. I saw it like on one of the major shelves in the library, and I was like, you know what, fine. I will read it. I will get it off my chest so that I can say that I've read it, I got it over with, and I can stop looking at it. And boy, you know, I feel really disappointed in myself that I've done that, because in reading this book, I really liked it. I thought it was great. So this book is about a young girl whose name is Cinder, and she is a cyborg, which means she's basically human, except she has mechanical parts. So she has a mechanical hand, she has a mechanical leg, and then she has in her system bits and pieces that are also, I guess you could say, mechanical. Now, to some, like in this society, cyborgs are not considered human. They're kind of a breed of their own. But realistically, as you're reading it and you're getting to know this character, she truly is human. She just happens to have pieces. If you remember like the Bionic Man and Bionic Woman, it's basically like that. They have stuff in their bodies that make them better, or, you know, in this case, she was in an accident which took those limbs and basically saved her life. So anywho, so she meets a prince, the prince, future emperor of this new Beijing, which is where they live. And she is a mechanic. She's known for fixing things. And he comes to her to help fix an android. And through that, ends up helping in this whole crazy conspiracy. And I don't want to give too much away, but basically the reason that she gets so involved personally is that there is a plague, very similar to the Black Plague. And people are just dying left and right, and they're looking for a cure. So she ends up getting volunteered by her stepmother. So similar to the Cinderella thing where the stepmother is just a total witch. And ends up going, and through that kind of finding out a little bit more about her and her lineage and who she may be. And so I gave it a 4. I really liked it. This book, similar to the Guinevere Deception, kind of ends with a beginning. So there's not really a lot that is figured out at the end. In fact, a whole bunch of stuff comes to light that in my head, I'm like, I only have 3 pages to read. How is this going to be finished? Like, how are they going to wrap up all these ties? And it doesn't. It's literally the beginning of probably, I think there are like 4 or 5 books to come. So really interested in continuing this, which I didn't think I'd ever say, but I really did enjoy this book. I will say I did give it a 4 as opposed to a 5 because I figured out the secret, and that's all I'll say, in the first 30 pages. So when it all came out in the last 3 pages, I was like, yep, knew that. This isn't a surprise at all. Like, nope. So unfortunately, you know, for me, that's just a big thing. Like, it's like, I want the last 3 pages to be like, oh my God, I never would have thought that. Instead of like waiting for them to say it. Like, when are you going to tell us? Because I already know. So I gave it a 4 because I really did like it, but I don't like when I can figure out things. And maybe that's on me, but it'd be nice to not have to figure things out. So anywho, that one I definitely gave a 4. So on to my 5-star books. There were 2 of them. The first one was The Immortalists by Chloe Benjamin. I saw this on Goodreads, and what really drew me to this book was the fact of these like leaves here. It was just really beautiful cover, and I was like, I really want to read that. Again, the book cover means a lot to me, and I don't know why, but I always gravitate towards ones that I really think look nice. So I picked this up. And when I read the inside cover, I was like, okay, yeah, I really want to read this book. And I loved it. So I will tell you, it is about 4 siblings that in their youth, so I think the oldest sibling was like 13, and then it went down to like a 6-year-old. They go to what is like a psychic or something like that, and she's known for telling people when they're going to die. So these kids go to her, and each of them get a date of when they are going to die. And then the rest of the book, so that's all in the prologue, and then the rest of the book is sectioned out into 4 sections, each for each child, and it is in order of who dies. And so when you're reading in each section, you are only reading from that sibling's point of view. And I loved that because you are learning about their own identity, their ideas, their thoughts about death and their imminent death, and if it's really going to happen. And I loved it. Once the first part ends and you move into the second, you get a little bit of acknowledgement of that last person's death, and you kind of see how it affected the rest of the siblings. But then you truthfully just get that sibling's point of view and how they live for that however long they have. And then it's just, the question really comes into play of, you know, was the psychic correct? What does she have? Was it magic? Was it made up? That kind of thing. And I was having a lot of issue in the first 3 sections because I was like, this is all crap. This is stupid. They're dictating this. And then it was like, or are they? Like, so you're very confused in the first 3 sections. And then when you get into the 4th and final sibling, everything just comes together. It just clicks. It's so good. Like, I really enjoyed this. Each character was complex. Each character had their own, way of thinking in the world. And when you kind of reflected on the last 3 while you're reading the 4th, you really get it. You really appreciate those other 3 parts more. And I just loved it. I thought it was so good. I thought it was interesting. I loved the way that the writing style was. I'd like to gloat again that this is a Wisconsin author. She lives in Madison, Wisconsin. She's not from Wisconsin, but it's looking like maybe her husband is. So again, another Wisconsin author. I mean, Wisconsin's doing something right, guys. So this I did give 5 stars. So that's The Immortalists. And then finally, my favorite book this month. I loved, if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen this a couple of times already, but The Bookish Life of Nina Hill by Abbi Waxman. I am predicting that this will probably be my favorite book this year, and it's only January. So it's going to take a lot to get this one off a pedestal. But The Bookish Life of Nina Hill is about a young woman. She's in her late 20s. She works at a bookstore. Her whole life is basically surrounded by books. She has kind of anxiety about being around people and having change in her life. So her character really reminds me of like Eleanor Oliphant. But she enjoys people as well. Like, she has more connections socially. She runs a bunch of book clubs. She goes out with friends. She's in a trivia group where they go to the bars and play trivia. And she is like starting this relationship with this guy, and she just messes it up like 3 or 4 times. And she's just so quirky, and she's so funny. I mean, this writing is so funny. There are so many moments where I literally laughed out loud. They're talking about penises and dick pics, and she's making jokes. She's super sarcastic. Basically, what turns her world upside down is she finds out who her father is through his death, because there's a reading of the will. And through that, she finds out she has all these siblings and nieces and nephews and great nieces and nephews. And it affects her because she's so used to being alone. It was just her and her mom, but her mom was a photojournalist who had always been gone. So really the person who raised her was a nanny. And so it's just, her life gets turned upside down and really for the better. And it is so comical and heartwarming. And as I was getting to the end, I even get a little teary-eyed because I felt so good that her life was becoming so much more full. I can't wait to find this at a thrift store so I can keep it for my whole life, because I would totally reread this again. I just felt I've never felt more happy for a fictional character. I felt like she was like a friend of mine. I felt like she would have been someone that I would have been friends with and would love to be friends with. I related to her so well, and like her anxiety is something that I definitely deal with in some social settings. I just, her reactions to things, and I just loved it. I can't say any more about it. My face is hurting because I'm smiling so much, but I think this is probably going to be my favorite book this year. So definitely, if you have some time, pick this up. It is so good. So that again is The Bookish Life of Nina Hill by Abbi Waxman. 5 stars for sure. Probably my favorite book this year. So, okay. That's all my books. Again, I read 8 books that were physical books, and then I had 1 audiobook. I had 5 3 stars, 2 4 stars, and 2 5 stars. And what I believe is probably my favorite book this year. So, until next time, guys, I hope you know what to do. That's hit that subscribe button, the notification bell, comment below. Let me know, have you read any of these books? Do you agree or disagree with my ratings? I'd love to have a conversation. And happy reading. Bye!